Welcome, I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, House of Representatives begins hearing on failed contract for CCTV cameras in Abuja and Lagos. Senate to investigate management contract for Transmission Company of Nigeria as lawmaker claims deal violates Nigerian laws. President Buhari reaffirms federal government's commitment towards the cleanup of Ogoni land and other parts of the Niger Delta. And World Health Organization predicts that 3 to 4 million people in the Americas risk being infected with Zika virus this year.
And on business news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari says there will be no further devaluation of the naira.
On sports news tonight, Confederation of African Rugby places Nigeria on standby to host the 2016 African Rugby Cup 1C tournament.
And from Abuja, I'm Linda Akibe. Tonight, soldiers fighting insurgents in Borno State demand to be relieved at the duty post as a theatre commander tours the front lines.
We begin tonight in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, where the federal government has been blamed for the failure of the $470 million National Public Security Communication Project. Now, this initiative includes the provision of CCTV cameras for Abuja and Lagos State. The former managing director of the Nigeria Communications Satellite Limited, Engineer Ahmed Rufai, made this submission when he appeared before an ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives investigating the contract. Our correspondent Larry Lassisi reports.
In recent times, Nigeria has had to deal with issues of security and terrorism in varying degrees, a situation that may be tackled if the country has a modern security system. Those gathered here are to help the House of Representatives understand why a $470 million security project that was completed in 2012 is not operational. The chairman of the committee and the chief whip of the House of Representatives speak on the focus of the investigation.
The purpose of the CCTV contract was to facilitate real-time online communication between security agencies to enhance their capacities to fight crime. The failure of the completed projects for the National Public Security Communication System contract has attended negative effect on the capacity of the security agencies of the country to fight the crime that became very endemic in this country.
Allegations regarding the implementation of the projects of such national security relevance include abdication of effective project and financial standard management and accountability, and weakening of the public treasury by delayed tax payments and suspicious expenditures that have not been properly accounted to government is unquestionably worthy of investigation.
It was then time to hear from some of the agencies invited.
As I speak, we've not been able to connect it. We're not part of it. We didn't see anything that connected the CBN to the project.
And to date, I think we've paid about 41.28 million as interest payment on the loan, but the principal repayment, that is repaying back the 399.5 million, will commence in 2018.
Considering the proposed cost of the contract in the sum of $470 million, the contract ought to have been accompanied with a certificate of no objection issued by the Bureau. Without a due process certificate of no objection, all payments made in respect of this project are illegal, and the contract is null and void, except if proven that it is a national security.
The former managing director of the Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited, who helped implement the project, however, had this to say.
If it is a national security project, the president has prerogative of approval. The prerogative of Mr. President set aside the entire procurement law. And I'm waiting for somebody to tell me that this project does not qualify to be described as such.
He also gave his position on the project.
The network was powered down because of inability of government to provide operational funds.
Now, this will not be the first time the House of Representatives will be looking into the matter. The 7th House of Assembly had conducted a similar investigation into this issue. But this committee says they will make sure that they find a quick resolution to this matter and make sure they understand what is stalling the project, but more importantly, to make sure that the project commences and helps the country address some of the security challenges presently confronting it. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the upper house, that's the Senate, is to investigate the circumstances surrounding the preparation, execution and implementation of the management services contract for the Transmission Company of Nigeria. The Bureau of Public Enterprises transferred the management of the Transmission Company of Nigeria to the Hydro International Nigeria Limited, also called Manitoba. A federal lawmaker, Senator Mohammed Hassan, alleges that the management services contract prepared by the BPE for the management of the TCN by Manitoba is full of irregularities and violates the laws of the country. Senator Hassan also claims Manitoba does not pay taxes on the monies it receives under the management services contract.
In 2013, the federal government, as part of its power reform program, granted Hydro International Nigeria Limited, also called Manitoba, control of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN. The move was expected to improve electricity in the country and ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians because of the epileptic electricity situation.
The Senate notes that.
But a federal lawmaker says the management service agreement, which was the basis for the transfer of a TCN to Manitoba, is filled with several irregularities.
Worried that TCN is imposed with this burden under the management service contract of paying all taxes for the management contractors, while Manitoba does not pay taxes on the monies it is paid under the management services contract.
Senator Hassan is asking the Senate to investigate the sale of 10 National Integrated Power Projects, NIPP, by the Bureau for Public Enterprises, BPE.
So far, BP privatized these power plants, and to our biggest surprise, the total value of the privatization of this power plants was $5.2 billion. We invested $8.4 billion and we're selling these power plants for $5.2 billion. And yet they cannot generate power more than 2,000 megawatts.
Lawmakers who contributed to the debate expressed displeasure at how a government agency would decide to waive $3 billion and sell the projects for $5 billion after an over $8 billion investment.
We must really thoroughly investigate the entire process. How the BP sold out our commonwealth.
For some of us, you wonder, how does an agency sitting somewhere can on its own write off $3.something billion without any reference to anybody? It's mind-boggling.
The Senate directed its committees on power and privatization to investigate the matter and make appropriate recommendations in its report to the Senate.
The National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party breathed the air of freedom today as he was allowed to go home after meeting his bail conditions. He was released from the Kuje prison around 6 p.m. and was driven home by some of his aides and relatives. Earlier today, his trial continued in Abuja after a witness told the court that the sum of 70 million naira paid into the account of Mr. Metu's company was for the management of the PDP's image and that of its presidential candidate in the 2015 election. Meanwhile, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has continued to detain the immediate past Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Adeshola Amosu, who was arrested on January the 27th by operatives of the Anti-Graft Agency. The former Air Force Chief is among the senior military officers whom President Muhammadu Buhari recently ordered the EFCC to investigate in the ongoing $2.1 billion arms deal scandal. According to the EFCC, the Air Chief is being investigated for reportedly authorizing the purchase of 2 helicopters without functional rotors. He later allegedly compelled 2 Air Force officers to fly in one of the helicopters after it was equipped with a rotor that was taken from an unserviceable Russian-made helicopter gunship. Now, the federal government says it has no plans to increase company taxes or value-added tax in the country, despite the dwindling oil revenue. The Minister of National Planning and Budget, Mr. Udoma, said this while giving an update on the 2016 budget, which is now before the National Assembly. This was also part of the outcome of the National Economic Council meeting today, presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Our State House correspondent, Chukwuma Onekwusi, reports.
Usually presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, who is the chairman of the council. The main focus is the economy and how to make it work for the Nigerian people. The governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano, sets the tone. He says council here addresses reports of agencies that collect revenue in hard currency and remit in the naira. The problem, he says, has been resolved.
Apart from NNPC, NIMASA and Port Authority, other agencies involved in the revenue generating are FIRS, Shippers Council, Airport Authority, and Nigerian Immigration Service. He reported that the introduction of TSA has now resolved the problem, as all accounts are under the control of the CBN.
The Lagos State Governor spoke on the management of excess crude account and the need to carry out a forensic audit of revenue agencies, for which KPMG has been appointed.
Council resolved also that the auditing of such revenue agencies should be carried out by the firm KPMG that will look at 18 core revenue agencies, and also by a local firm, SIAO, that will also look at 83 other non-core revenue agencies.
The governor of Jigawa State briefs on the status of the excess crude account, while the states that are still to benefit on the bailout from government should work up their status. The Minister of Budget and National Planning gives an update on the 2016 budget and what it is out to do towards creating inclusive growth.
You know, the budget is now with the National Assembly, and it's really with them. We've made our proposals. But having said that, one thing we're determined not to do is to cut the capital, any of those capital projects, because we need them to stimulate the economy. We inform the states that we do not intend to increase VAT, or will increase the VAT rate at the moment, but will improve VAT collection, which is currently only about 20%. So we expect to increase the coverage of VAT collection. And to this end, states were encouraged to help the FIRS in VAT collection and remittance.
The National Economic Council is worried that a decline in oil prices may continue. States were encouraged to be creative to tackle the downturn, while the federal government provides the stimulus to grow the economy. Chukwuma Onekwusi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, PDP leadership crisis deepens as governors ask acting chairman to step down, direct National Secretary Professor Oladipo Adewale to take over as chairman. That's in a moment. You'll join us again.